Okay, we'll go ahead and get started now. Thank you, everybody. Good evening. My name is Diana Jimenez, Public Information Officer for Caltrans District 7. Welcome to the third Traffic Management Plan Task Force meeting for the Vincent Thomas Bridge Deck Replacement Project. We'd like to start the meeting acknowledging those fighting the fires in the LA area, as well as those who are keeping communities safe and those who have suffered losses. We are thinking of everyone and sending good wishes. Okay, again, we thank you for joining us tonight and would like to inform you that we have posters, plot maps, surveys, frequently asked questions, and fact sheets regarding the Vincent Thomas Bridge project, so feel free to take a look at those. Now I'm going to see if anybody needs a Spanish translation. Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Diana Jiménez, portavoz de Caltrans Distrito 7. ¿Hay alguien en la audiencia que ocupa translación en español? Okay, I guess not, so. We don't have an interpreter available today, so I wanted to double check. Okay. For today's meeting agenda, we will have a presentation about the traffic management plan, as well as a presentation from the LAPD Harbor Division and Long Beach Police. And after that, we'll be following up with questions and answers. So feel free to fill out a comment card in the back. And now I'll turn it over to Ken Young, Office Chief for District 7 Traffic Management, who will proceed with the presentation. Ken? Sorry, before Ken begins, I'd like to acknowledge representatives from the offices of Assemblymember Josh Lowenthal, Supervisor Janice Hahn, City of Los Angeles Councilmember Tim McCosker, and City of Long Beach Vice Mayor Roberto Uranga. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone, and happy New Year as well. Just before we get started, I kind of started the year off with a cold, so please hang in there with me. If I'm not enunciating properly or it's not clear, let me know. We're going to talk about the Transportation Traffic Management Plan today. Generally speaking, the Traffic Management Plan is a collection of proven strategies to best manage the project impacts related to the community, essentially, but also includes the construction workers. The ultimate goal here is to identify the detour, and when we do establish the detour, to apply the strategies and elements within that to minimize the impacts to the communities, surrounding communities. Numerous challenge areas have been presented through this process. They include traffic delays, safety, such as crosswalks at schools, air quality, and the public infrastructure, such as pavement. And in terms of the traffic management plan, we plan to adopt a combination of traditional strategies with innovative strategies. Some of the traditional strategies, as simple as communication of information. Once we establish the detour, to identify mitigation and strategies thereof to streamline traffic flow and throughput. The construction will take place in kind of like two phases. I mean, I think a lot of us know about the full closure in terms of the 16-month. That represents the greatest impact. But before that, there will be some preliminary work which will take place during late night closures and extended weekend closures. What we have before us is a map of a comprehensive look at the detours being considered. The preferred alternatives would be and this is to and from Terminal Island from our freeway system. The preferred route would be the most direct route, which would be for motorists to stay on the freeway system. So that would be best achieved on the 710 going south to 47 and to Terminal Island. For motorists that should use the 110, for example, they would need to get off at some point. And during the environmental document, those considerations were Harry Bridges Boulevard, PCH, and Sepulveda. And if you go south of Harry Bridges, there would be a hard closure at Harbor Boulevard where motorists would get off and utilize, for example, Harry Bridges Boulevard to proceed to Terminal Island. In terms of the determination of the local detour, we're looking at a set of criteria. It includes, but is not necessarily limited to this, but we feel like these are reasonable criteria to objectively look at every one of the detours that are considered, and they include the ability to accommodate all vehicle types, to be reasonably close to the closure, the ability to have sufficient capacity to hold any extra demand that may occur during such closures, and transit and railroad impacts, as well as those with regards to neighborhoods, businesses, and schools. This is a tabular format of the criteria, the selection criteria on the header, as it relates to the considered alternatives, or arterials, Harry Bridges Boulevard, PCH as it connects to the 110, and a part of PCH that connects to the 710, as well as Sepulveda Boulevard. So basically, those areas that are that meet the criteria, it's classified with a check box there. And
Does the X mean it's eliminated?
No.
A check would be
No, a check mark means that it meets the criteria. For example, if we look at Harry Bridges Boulevard, it meets the criteria of accommodating all vehicle types. It's reasonably close to the closure. It has sufficient capacity. And it has minimal impacts as it relates to neighborhoods, businesses, schools. We evaluated it, yes. So this is what we have at this time. And we did the same thing relative to Pacific Coast Highway and Sepulveda Boulevard. So based on this point system at this point, Harry Bridges Boulevard kind of is at the forefront of detours that we would consider versus negatively impacting Pacific Coast Highway, for example, or Sepulveda Boulevard further to the north, which is not nearly as close in terms of proximity to the closure.
Do you want to wait till the end to answer everything? Or?
Okay. So in terms of applying the criteria that was specified on the previous slide, this is a look at basically encompasses the freeway system, the 110, the 405 is bordered by the 110, 405, and 710. And then because the impacts are greater at Sepulveda and Pacific Coast Highway, in this view, we would remove those routes from consideration. And because Harry Bridges Boulevard kind of rose to the forefront in terms of having minimal impacts to the surrounding community, that would be the ideal route. The goal basically is to maximize the use of the state highway system and to minimize the use of the local roadway, and thus minimizing the impacts of the surrounding community. I think that this is just another view of that, but more a closer view of that. The preferred detour at this time. It's not final. We won't finalize the detour until prior to or by February. But if we took the selection criteria as we see it today, we're leaning closer to utilizing Harry Bridges Boulevard as a detour, not only because it meets the selection criteria, but it also has some benefits in terms of connectivity to the San Pedro region. For example, it connects with Gaffey at Channel Street, using Harbor Boulevard. It ultimately connects to Pacific Avenue, John Gibson, and to Harry Bridges. So that with meeting that criteria and with the benefits of connectivity to the general region, such as San Pedro, we feel like that's the better suited detour at this time. This is a closer look at San Pedro, for example. So as I noted, there's entry points at Harbor Boulevard, at the terminus of Route 10, and even at Channel Island. So this speaks to the potential detours off of Harbor Boulevard, northbound on Gaffey at the 110, and proceeding west of the 110, one can connect onto Channel Street, and ultimately connect with John Gibson and Harry Bridges Boulevard. For those in North San Pedro, it was a little discreet at the top, but we would advocate that motorists use Gaffey Street to proceed south as if they were going to connect to those ramps and then proceed onto the Pacific Avenue and Harry Bridges Boulevard. In terms of overall strategy, we're trying to give motorists as much information as possible through an aggressive public awareness campaign. So that's through media, through internet, through other means that may not be available to the neighborhoods. But we're also doing things on the ground in terms of, we have signs out there, electronic sign message, we call it changeable message signs, and we're going to supplement those with what we call portable changeable message signs. So what the shaded area represents is a strategy to provide as many of these assets as possible so that motorists have the ability to make decisions as far north as the 101 to the west or to the 10 to the east. So if you looked at the 405, you have numerous decision points. The first one being the 101 freeway to proceed in the eastbound direction, or you have alternatives at Route 10 and the 105. Same thing for the various routes that come, like the 110, they have the addition of the 91, that's an alternative. So if we're able to create enough diversion, then we won't have so much concentration at one particular point. So our goal, our target, is to establish about 40 to 50% diversion. So basically, of the traffic that would ordinarily use Vincent Thomas Bridge, we're trying to extract 40 to 50% of that. So then the challenge becomes, well, how do we deal with the 50 to 60% of the remaining traffic? As we look at Harry Bridges Boulevard, some of the questions that come up, well, can Harry Bridges Boulevard contain the expected demand that it would take if we select it as a detour? So in the environmental document, we have a traffic operational analysis report that speaks to projected capacities during in 2027 during the full closure alternative. So what's outlined in red there represents the capacities, and generally speaking, Harry Bridges is 2 lanes in each direction with a capacity of about 1,000 vehicles per hour per lane. It generally has a capacity of 2,000 vehicles per hour in each direction. So the demands, for the most part along the corridor, are under 2,000, with the exception of when it meets Anaheim Street and turns onto Henry Ford Avenue. And then we would basically, in terms of mitigation, we would make some adjustments to timings, to signals, or do some traffic pavement delineation improvements to enhance the operations of the roadway. Trucks have been presented as a challenge throughout the process. We're understanding of the pre-existing conditions in terms of circulations, through the neighborhoods above and beyond Harry Bridges. So we have some potential mitigation in terms of reinforcing the use of Harry Bridges Boulevard as to use for specifically for the port, and in those areas where we have a truck restriction, such as Anaheim Street off the 110 or Willow Street off the 710, to reinforce that through a combination of signage, both stationary or static, or electronic through portable changeable message signs. And that's only as effective as the enforcement is. So that's why we need a collection of a collective effort here in terms of CHP and what City of LA, for example, may bring, and they'll have the opportunity to speak to how they can contribute to this process. the challenges related to schools have been presented. This is a slide, it speaks generally to the challenges. So while we're not noting or identifying every school in terms of what's identified in the numerical areas there, some of the schools on the graphical map may be represented but not represented, so to speak. But in essence, we're showing that PCH here has the greatest impact, especially in terms of the elementary and the high schools. And so that's where we recognize the impacts related to safety, and even though we are keeping an open-mindedness in terms of helping address that, whether it's a direct or indirect impact, we're also mindful that because of that impact, at this time we would respectfully remove PCH from consideration as a detour. We would not want further impact to that arterial. Railroads remain a challenge, especially on Harry Bridges and Henry Ford, but you could also extend that to Anaheim Street. We've experienced some challenges in terms of delays on the weekends, as great as 17 to 54 minutes, but we've also understand that there's even greater impacts during the weekdays, which equate to extensive queues going close to Route 10. So that's something we're mindful of, and that's something we're working in collaboration with the Port of LA and as well as the Alameda Corridor Transportation Authority to try to get an understanding of what the schedules and how we could coordinate coordinate the railroad activity with any kind of adjacent signals. Pavement condition on Harry Bridges Boulevard, or maybe more specifically Alameda Street. Whatever we do in terms of the detour, this reinforces our commitment to rehabilitate, maintain, and restore the detour routes, prior to, through, and prior to just restore it, to its condition prior to use as a detour. In terms of the TMP, there's a number of strategies. There's about 7 of them. Strategy number 1 kind of speaks to our public awareness campaign, specific to. I noted we're here in a public meeting, so that's one of those items. Internet, press releases. There's opportunities in terms of mailers and kiosks at certain locations. I think we've applied them at farmers markets already. Strategy number 2 kind of speaks to the motorist information strategies, which I indicated in terms of the application of changeable message signs and portable changeable message signs, as well as any other information such as the Caltrans Highway Information Network that could better inform motorists of what's downstream, so to speak, and to plan ahead. In terms of the information that would be provided on the ground, we expect that to be in place at least 30 days in advance of construction so that motorists have the ability to plan as best as possible. In terms of the public awareness campaign, that's beginning as soon as now, and we'll continue to be as aggressive and assertive as needed to best inform the public and the motorists therein. Incident management, vehicles break down, and create, we have unplanned events such as that, and we have services that, in concert with Metro, to get those vehicles off the roadway as soon as possible, to continue so people could keep moving and we can increase throughput. And we also have work in concert with the CHP in terms of COZI, the Construction Zone Enhancement Enforcement Program, to they help us out a lot during the construction activities and keep traffic moving. In terms of construction strategies, for every project we provide lane closure charts that, with understanding of the demand, historical demand, we advise in terms of the number of lanes that need to be kept open at particular times. Safety is a priority, so we always apply a reduced speed zone in the area that's 10 miles per hour, and commonly 10 miles per hour less than the regulatory speed limit. And then, as noted earlier, in terms of stage construction, there may be opportunities to do the work during extended weekend closures such that it doesn't impact the regular commute week. In terms of strategy 5, demand management, we have services and facilities to assist in one's commute. But we all have a responsibility to, if we know about it, to do the best we can to adjust and be flexible in terms of how we commute. So while a lot of us, for example, in the survey indicated that you take your automobiles, there may be opportunities to take transit, and if there is, then that's our individual choice, so to speak. Once we determine the detour, we could apply, and we understand as we do, the demand that can be applied on that respective route or routes. We're going to apply strategies in terms of signal timing to increase throughput. If we need to increase capacity through the addition of lanes, or we need to apply traffic control officers in terms of maybe critical movements, in terms of left turn movements are more challenging than right turn movements, for example, then we'll take those opportunities to do that. If, for example, we needed to use a corridor that had a lot of businesses, then parking restrictions may need to be a consideration. But if we're looking at Harry Bridges at this point, as we're presenting here, that's not as big of an impact as it would be for Pacific Coast Highway, for example. Other strategies basically speak to innovation. We have an automated work zone enforcement system where, used strategically, during the day or maybe during off-peak hours, we'll be able to better guide motorists to use the 710, for example, to access Terminal Island, versus during the peak periods, we would probably defer to encouraging motorists to use alternate routes, because we want to empower motorists to be able to select the routes that are familiar with them in order to get across the east-west corridor, or east-west towards Route 710, that is. In terms of roles and responsibilities, this is a Caltrans project, obviously, but it takes many to make this successful. So in terms of one of the items we spoke to in terms of truck enforcement, which is the second row there, we'll do what we can in terms of signage on the freeways and working with our partners at CHP to enforce that. But also, we also need the same thing on the local street system as well. So with this task force, and as we move forward to future workshops where we kind of get together and roll up our sleeves and delve into the details, we'll be talking with these entities, City of LA, CHP, LAPD, Metro, LAUSD, at the very least, to best strategize to minimize the impacts to the surrounding community. In terms of past meetings, our last meeting in San Pedro, and even going back into Wilmington, there were some feedback that we're working on. For example, the second to last bullet here kind of speaks to concerns on PCH, utilizing that as a detour specific to not only the traffic control in terms of the signals, but also schools. So in recognition of that and the criteria we established, at this time, our vision would be to remove that. There's also been feedback in terms of collaboration from a project perspective and collaboration from a partner and stakeholder perspective, which is what we're doing now through our technical advisory committee meetings and our community advisory committee meetings, and what we will continue to do as part of our future workshops. And this slide kind of speaks to what I represented in terms of the future workshops, in terms of taking what we can from these 3 workshops, debriefing that, and coming together with the stakeholders and partners to kind of break down the technical issues and challenges presented. We're part of the way there. We're not fully complete. It's a process. And so some of those challenges kind of relate to roadway rehabilitation and project coordination, and we'll continue to work on that. And then so essentially, again, the goal is to maximize the use of the state highway system and minimize the impacts on the local roadway. So the best way to achieve that, for example, is we don't want motorists to utilize arterials such as PCH or Sepulveda for that matter. We want them to use the least impacted. And if we could achieve that by using routes to the north, for example, 105, 91, or 405, that's the way we want to do that. And then above and beyond that, we are working with, we're coordinating with our team to contact Google to further, so when all of you use your navigation apps to see how you're going to get from here to there, then hopefully, through the coordination with Google, they'll be able to best navigate motorists around the impacted area and not through it. So with that said, I'll pass it back to Diana. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ken. And again, we want to provide the contact information for the public information officers for this project. I'm one of the public information officers. My name is Diana Jimenez, and my colleague Nathan Bass, who's in this room, is also the second public information officer. We also have an email address that you can contact us in, and our phone numbers if you have any questions about the project. Feel free to reach us there, and this QR code has access to our Vincent Thomas Bridge website. Now we have a small presentation from Captain Brent McGuire and Sergeant Bill McManlove from Los Angeles Police Department.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for giving up your time to come out here and share your voice and give us impact on what's going on here. It helps guide for the police as well to hear your concerns and understand how we can better plan for what's to come. My name's Brent McGuire. I work LAPD, our Harbor Division, which is basically for this project west of the 710. With the areas impacted the most are obviously going to be San Pedro and the Wilmington area that we focus on. So with that, I know Long Beach is going to come up. Where we're a little bit different from them is the policing operations for the port in LA is actually handled by a separate policing agency, the Port Police. With them, we work in concert with them a lot, and I'm no expert on their side of the house, but I do know that some of the steps they are taking is leveraging some technology. They're developing an app for the truckers that they can utilize to basically make appointments and schedule their pickups. What that does is it will hopefully spread out the traffic so that way all the truckers are not coming at the same time to the port. They will be told, like down to the minute, at 12:13 is when your pickup will be available. So there's no reason for you to come down all at once at 8 o'clock in the morning and wait for your load to be ready. So that is one option that they're trying to do to try and make sure that we don't have the glut of truck traffic all at the same time. In addition to that, they are hiring additional traffic officers, the ones on the motorcycles. They will be working mostly on easing some of the traffic congestion, both inside the port and in the streets around it. The hope is the better they can do with that, the less issues we'll have in the surrounding neighborhoods. So they're hiring additional officers right now, again, trying to, as much as possible, make sure those trucks are smoothly getting into the port and out of the port, and we don't have any backups where the trucks will be backed up into the surrounding freeways or neighborhoods. Where my folks come in, LAPD, we do handle the surrounding streets surrounding that area. Right now, I can tell you we already struggle a little bit with the truck traffic. Again, these truckers work by the load, so the faster they can get to the port, grab their load and get out, that means they can squeeze in an extra load and make a little bit of extra money that day. So as of now, when we have backups, we already see trucks that are cutting through residential neighborhoods or going down areas where they're not supposed to be. So with that, we do have a commercial enforcement section. These again are specially trained officers on motorcycles that go out and write tickets to some of these truckers to try and keep them from either cutting through the neighborhoods, or another big thing that we have now is they will drop some of their loads or the containers in the neighborhood, basically mini store it, run back to the port, pick up a second load. That way they can store those there and then grab them and make their deliveries later on.
Why aren't you enforcing that illegal activity now?
We are enforcing that illegal activity now. The traffic officers are out there. They write a lot of tickets. Full disclosure, I'm saying that is not going to be the catch-all, because on a typical day, they'll write about 100 tickets to different truckers. But when you talk about the volume of 10,000 trucks coming in and out of the port a day, that's about 1% of the trucks coming in and out. So we try to deter that activity, but I think our biggest bang for the buck is what these folks are talking about here, is doing some of those environmental designs to make sure that we keep that flow of traffic moving in and out. So as I said, we already struggle with that a little bit today. So in anticipation of this project, what we're doing right now is being realistic in that LAPD is already down 1,000 officers. So as far as us hiring additional officers and dedicating to that, we don't see that as a realistic solution. What we are looking at is getting additional funds. We've already made entreaties through both the state, the county, and our local officials to get some overtime money so that we can get additional of those officers out there to both keep the flow of traffic going for the trucks, number one. Number two, to do the enforcement, especially early on. We would like to send the message. We'll have a surge of officers out there to send the message so that these truckers know that some of these activities will not be a viable option for them going forward. And then we also understand that it will also create issues for just regular community members driving their cars up and down the street. So we're going to definitely be focusing on the flow of traffic up and down, keeping illegal behavior in check as much as possible. And then as discussed, some of these routes will impact schools and stuff like that. So obviously our number one concern will be making sure that no kids are impacted or there's no additional traffic fatalities as we have trucks taking alternate routes. So with that, that's kind of all I have. If you want me to take questions now, are you good?
Thank you. And up next, we have Commander Stephanie Hall and Officer John Ward with the Long Beach Police Department.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming. My name is Stephanie Hall. I'm a commander. I've been assigned to the port for 4 days, so I apologize ahead of time for any questions that I may not be able to answer. I've brought Officer John Ward. He's one of our commercial enforcement officers. If you don't know it, bring somebody who does know it. So John is here to help out. I think in this situation, we're very fortunate that the impact in Long Beach will be a little less than LA. Sorry, LA. Thank you for taking the brunt of that. But I know going forward, and I will bring it back to my colleagues over at the port, is to get the message out quickly. They have the ability to message out to the drivers, get this out to them, so that way the impact to the community and the residents is very minimal. Obviously, Officer Ward and his partner will do enforcement action, educate the truck drivers, remind them to stay off the road or the non-truck routes. But I'm going to pass it over to you in case you've got more information than I do.
Yeah, we did our bridge a couple years ago. So Long Beach will not be as affected just based on those routes. Coming down the 710 will probably be a little more impacted, but Anaheim, maybe PCH, but we have a large section on Willow that no trucks are allowed to go. It's just not rated. It's all residential. We sit up there and write trucks now, so they kind of come through. Depending on how they do all of their diversions and stuff, hopefully Long Beach doesn't see too much impact, maybe more on the freeways and the 103, the 47. But as for Long Beach, we shouldn't get hit too bad. Most of it's going to be on the LA side.
Thank you both so much. Okay. So now we're going to get started on our verbal feedback. We mentioned in the previous meetings, verbal feedback, each speaker will have 2 minutes to ask a question, provide feedback, and the feedback can be submitted using the speaker card. Please keep the questions and comments focused on the traffic management plan. Any related questions or comments will be addressed after the meeting. And project staff I will call on the speakers in the order they are received, and we'll be here to answer the questions as well. And when you're called upon, please come to the microphone and make your comment. If preferred, staff can read your question on your behalf. Okay, up first we have Stephen Gressett.
Okay, so in terms of Harry Bridges, currently from Avalon up to Anaheim, that road is in no condition for increased traffic. It needs a lot of rehabilitation. And in addition, and I see where you sign off and you're not responsible for the side streets, we take the southbound transition on the 710 to the Gerald Desmond. There's an area there that has what I would say bubble surface. So those are going to have to be thing. So in addition to that, currently in San Pedro, like the past 2 days, we closed each side of the thing, Thursday one day, Wednesday the outbound for 5 hours. So my thing is, if we're going to continue to do this, why not just close the whole bridge and speed up that process and start seeing where the ripple effect is going to be? In fact, I would like to see a couple run-throughs where you just shut down the bridge, let's say Monday through Friday, and let's see what happens to help improve your analysis. And that's the only way we're going to real test it. And as for Google Maps, I feel we can monitor that now with Google Maps, saying the distance from the 710 to a certain terminal, what time it is, and monitor that on an hourly and daily basis right now without even having to go them. Someone just has to set up the program. In addition, I would prefer to keep 2 lanes open just in a case of emergency. Last time they brought up the problem with Harbor General. So we had the issue where the lithium battery overturned and we had to shut down the island, okay. So in order to get that, anyone from the LA side is going to have to go through the traffic mess. So my feeling is, if it's possible, work on keep 2 lanes open going one way, and then set up windows, 4-hour windows where the traffic could be reversible lanes to move back and forth and see how that works. And then you could have the bridge open from like 5 in the morning to 7 in the evening, and then you can work all you want all the other hours, but at least that gives us an emergency. In light of what's currently happening in LA transit and people having their cars run over by bulldozer, I think it makes sense to have an outlet, and I don't see an outlet. And as for the app, or for the LAPD and your concern, okay, like I said the last time, right now I'd give you guys a C, and I don't see everything that you do, but I would give you a C only because I look at one terminal, Merce. Clearly there's a sign that says, do not park here. And it's for the app, for the truck drivers to be on time. That's part of the problem, is the truck drivers are trying to game the system and be there earlier. So unless we can adopt some system like they do at the airport where you have a holding tank where they could sit there and then we'll call you up from the holding tank, like Long Beach Airport has a holding tank where all cars, and then if you want curb service, you come up there. That, to me, is the way to deal with the appointments. Right now, the truck drivers try to game the system. And you can clearly see that because it's from Navy Way all the way up to the terminal at Maersk. There's an issue, constantly cars, trucks sitting thing. And then last time you brought up the point that truck traffic only represented 4%. Truck traffic may only represent 4%, but each truck is the equivalent of 3 cars. And that's part of the problem when you get off to the cruise terminal, is it takes 6 trucks to totally jam up that turn thing. And within the last 6 months or whatever, LAPD or someone finally put a guy to direct traffic down there, which has sped things up. But it took too long. And then a month ago, when we had trucks parked on the Vincent Thomas Bridge, all the way back to Navy Way, I mean, I don't think the bridge was designed to hold that, but that's my impression of what needs to go. I would prefer to keep 2 lanes open just as an emergency and keep the bridge open from 5 in the morning to 7 at night, and then you do whatever you want. And from now until wherever we start, let's have a couple test runs. In the next couple weeks, I believe they're going to close the eastbound one day and they're going to close the westbound the other day. I believe that's in the notice that I have, that's a potential. Let's close it both ways, Monday through Friday, and see what happens, and see the ripple effect. It's interesting, if you read the traffic fact sheet or whatever, LA has 4 of the worst nation's bottlenecks. And one of those bottlenecks is the 110 and the 105, and the other bottleneck is the 710 and 91. So when we go to analyze it, it's just not talking about how it's going to impact this. How far is it going to ripple out? It's just like when there's an earthquake.
Sir, 2 minutes past. Thank you so much. We can talk to you after the meeting if you have more questions, but thank you. Okay, up next we have Jared McAllen. After that will be Clay Marshall.
All right. Hey, I'm Jared. So one of the things I was curious about after the last meeting was why it takes 16 months to repave a bridge. So I went back through and I looked at the old technical meetings to try to find that answer. So I found in the technical meeting 6 that was actually planned to be 9 to 12 months, but they extended to 16 months because of a lack of staging area for construction. So I listened to that meeting. I didn't really hear any discussion on like alternative staging areas. So I think we've heard a lot of problems with people staging trucks and things like in neighborhoods. And the reason they said they couldn't find a staging area is because the port was using it. So I'd like to see some conversation with the Port of LA about can we find a construction staging area and bring the construction timeline back to 9 to 12 months. As far as the traffic goes, I think we're actually pretty fortunate that Harry Bridges seems like it's a pretty good alternative. So I drove there on my way home today. I own a home in Long Beach. So there's a couple areas that I wanted to kind of highlight based on like other cities I've been in. So there's a lot of like T intersections where like a street dead ends into Harry Bridges and there's a light. So in Florida, we have a facility I've seen where the far right lane doesn't stop on those so that you can just keep going and then like you only have a turn lane. So I think there's opportunity for that here. It looks like between Harry Bridges and Anaheim, there's enough room for a slip lane there for the right turn. We might be able to have traffic just not stop, even put a temporary roundabout in there, as well as a few other areas. I used to live in Michigan, and we had a lot of places where you just couldn't do a left turn. You had to do called a Michigan left, where you go past the intersection and turn around. I think there's a few like lightly traveled intersections here where you might be able to do the same thing on Harry Bridges. And then one other thing is, I think we should look into at least doing temporary overpasses or grade separation for the railroads. I know it sounds kind of crazy, but places like Switzerland will build temporary overpasses for construction where they can just have traffic go over. Some of my family of companies have done, temporary tunnels underneath like highways and things like that to move car traffic. You can't move trucks that way, but you might be able to move some of the car traffic through. So I think if we can just have the car traffic go through Harry Bridges much easier, I think it might actually be a pretty good alternative.
Thank you. Up next, we have Clay Marshall. Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
Attention library patrons. The library will be closing in 10 minutes. The upper floor will be closing in 5. And the lower restrooms in 5. The computers will shut down in 10 minutes. We are no longer making new library cards. If you have any items to check out, please bring them to the checkout desk now.
Okay, hello everybody. My name is Andy Chen. I'm the structure senior for this project. I would like to address that time issue, the 9 to 12 month change to 16 month. The 9 to 12 month is a preliminary estimate. And after we sit down, talk with the contractor, knows the actual situation, the 16 months become more realistic. It has to do with this, not just only the staging area, but also the materials that needs to be made. The preliminary works, such as the quick deck, the protective covers. So the 9 to 12 months is just a preliminary at the very beginning. But after we sit down with the contractor, we realize that 16 months is become more realistic. I hope that answered the question.
I would like to point out in the meeting minutes, it says why the difference with no staging area below the bridge, half the bridge is required for access and support for headaches, construction done.
Okay, can we talk after this? Sure, thank you.
Okay, up next, Jesse Marquez. Oh, sorry.
I'd like to start off with Stephen's comments. Thank you, Stephen. I think we spoke to, in terms of stage construction before the full closure, we're going to do some night closures, do some extended weekend closures. I know you maybe mentioned specifically during the work week, but nonetheless, there's opportunities there to close the bridge, permanently on a limited basis, and to kind of test those detours and see what we could do better. So we'll take those opportunities within the allowance of the construction process or staging, so to speak, to critically evaluate the detours that we have in play and make the adjustments as needed. In terms of, you mentioned Google, and yes, maybe some people, and not myself, I'm not good enough to program or plan things in terms of on Google, but some people, so those people like myself may benefit from coordination with Google and having Google have the ability to inform motorists to steer away from the area, whether it's to use a freeway system. If that's the case, then myself and probably others like me would benefit from that. Otherwise, we continue to empower motorists to use the tools at their availability to get from their origin to their destination. In terms of emergency response, we have and continue to talk with the Port of LA at the very least in terms of emergency response. We understand the importance of that, so that we'll have continued dialogue moving forward into future workshops with our partners and stakeholders. I think that's all I have. And in terms of the second, I forgot your name. Jared, thank you for your comments, and we'll certainly look into opportunities to enhance traffic flow.
Okay, up next, Jesse Marquez.
Hello, my name is Jesse Marquez. I'm the founder and executive director of the Coalition for a Safe Environment. I'm happy to say we are now a 24-year public service organization, and we specialize in reviewing environmental impact reports and other project proposals. I have personally read over 50 environmental impact reports, including reports that are 10,000 pages long where I review those things. The one, the EIR that you approved and all the assessment reports that are attached to it fall into the top 10 worst I've ever seen in my life. You have lied and deceived the public about what can be done. The biggest evidence to show that what a big joke what you're doing, right here in your facts, it states the traffic management plan is not enforceable. Not enforceable. And here you're telling us to participate, spend time on something that's not enforceable. Under CEQA, you cannot do that. Everything has to be enforceable. Everything. So that's one CEQA category that you violated. Disclosure of the truth. Well, I'm going to submit two sets of documents, Exhibit A and Exhibit B, which are color photographs. I'm giving you two sets. It's called public information, but when we teach classes to community organizations and communities, we teach the public and residents. Information has another name, evidence. So I'm submitting Exhibit A and B as evidence that all the traffic studies you did is a joke. I have color photos taken on Henry Bridges Road, where the port did all of its studies, and you rubber stamped all of their studies as well, because you look at them. And what you're going to see in Exhibit A are about 200 trucks backed up on Henry Bridges Road. There's supposed to be no backup on a public street going into Trade Pack Terminal at the Port of LA. There's not supposed to be any trucks parked, in line, idling, waiting on Henry Bridges Road. Well, there it is, the evidence, just taken a couple of weeks ago. The other Exhibit B is another situation, and that's taken on Sepulveda in Carson and Wilmington Avenue, where there were about another 50 trucks going north from Wilmington, up Wilmington Avenue, making a right turn to Sepulveda to go to a container storage yard. So there are color photos showing all those long lines of truck, and then I have photos of the same place I took before where a fight was going to break out. Why? Because the truck that came down Sepulveda cut in front of the truck and parked right there to get in line. Well, no, the guy right behind him jumped out of his truck saying, "What the fuck are you doing here? Cutting in line, no, this is the big line here." That's studies you didn't do.
Okay, thank you, sir. Does anybody want to address his question?
1,000
Sir, your 2 minutes are up. We can talk more after the meeting. Does anybody want to address his comments from the team?
It says right here in their own document, not enforceable. Right. Go right up there and get it, not enforceable.
Earlier tonight, with all of these law enforcement personnel that are going to be enforcing the laws of the traffic. So to say it's not enforceable, not sure we understand.
First of all, you haven't even identified everything.
Right.
And that's what I'm saying is wrong with your documentation. You did not identify every single impact. That's the problem. You're doing something generically. You're approving something that, should have been up front as part of the original document so that the public would have an opportunity to review it. You did not have a public notice, final public comment period, so that people could have submitted public comments on the final EIR. You referred to the draft. You referred to responding to the draft, but not the final.
That's right. That's how the process works.
No, it never has been that way. Port of Long Beach have final public comment periods, every project.
That could that could be the case. We're trying to get this project done before the Olympics. To say it's not enforceable is not true. It's not. You're making it sound like people are going to be able to run a havoc.
They do.
Well,
what tell people there's 50,000 vehicles.
Very good.
Trucks
Very good.
every day.
Right,
Where
but
are they going to go?
I understand that, but we're not creating an environment where it's going to be a chaos and people driving all over the place and running over neighborhoods and running over kids.
You just didn't describe it in full enough detail so that we, the public, understand it. And the only reason I did not comment is because I had personal illnesses for the past year and a half. I could not participate until now when I'm feeling healthier and I'm able, and that's why I'm here today. Otherwise, I would have already filed a letter of intent to file a civil lawsuit against you for what you guys were presenting to the public. And I hope there's still a legal challenge that can happen. And I'm hoping that my information and research will help us challenge that.
Thank you, Jesse. Appreciate your comments. Just to expand on what Jason was saying in terms of the TMP, the traffic management plan, we're certainly held, we're held accountable, to the public to do the best to identify strategies and elements to, minimize the impact to the traffic. This TMP, it won't be perfect. There'll be times when we have to adapt, and the motorists will have to adapt too. Especially in the first 30 days, there'll be an adaptation period, and after that 30 days, most motorists will settle into their whatever is most comfortable for them. But within that, there may be things some adjustments we need to make, and we're okay with that because again, it won't be perfect.
No, your proposed mitigation was painting lines for traffic that already exist and tweaking the signals. Well, you've already shown us an example where you did that, and it shows the capacity of Harry Bridges Road between 1,200 and 1,400. But we're talking 10,000, 5,000, 53,000 vehicles. It can't handle that. No street can handle that.
And beyond that, as I mentioned, railroads are a challenge, and there may be opportunities to coordinate in terms of preemption. So when those activities occur, we can optimize traffic flow with what we have, and there may be opportunities, and I don't remember distinctly in terms of detail, but there may be opportunities to add a turn pocket here or there, if I'm not mistaken. But that's subject to partnership with our, coordination with our partners and stakeholders to see if we have the infrastructure to do that. So I
didn't see the Harbor PD on your chart. I didn't see the Long Beach PD on the chart. I didn't see the Carson Sheriff's on the chart. And then you're throwing the burden on those agencies for enforcement. how much money are you going to give each of those public agencies, because it's going to be public taxpayer dollars, versus port and shipping companies and your big box retailers? They're causing the burden. They should be paying, you should be paying as part of your budget.
Well, it's
All these should be submitting a budget for you in order to get the staff that they need, because they're going to need 3 times the staff.
Well, it's a partnership, so I'll stop with that. And in terms of just why we're here to meet is, as we prepare this traffic management plan, it's important to get feedback in advance rather than to develop something that we believe, based on our limited experience of the surrounding area, and then have you provide feedback on that. We want to get the feedback now so we can consider it and work with our partners and stakeholders to best address those needs.
It should have been in the environmental impact report up front to evaluate. Because then it could be challenged and adjusted. Now you're telling us, oh, for 30 days, let's see what happens. No.
There's a process, an environmental document. The TMP elements are spoken on a comprehensive level, and the traffic management plan is often developed in the design process. We have a plan, specifications, and estimate process, which are designed people work on plans, construction staging, and concurrent with those construction staging, we build the traffic management plan, of which you and everyone here is providing that feedback. So, thank you for your feedback.
Thank you. Up next, we have Natalie Reese.
My name is Natalie, and I'm from the Office of Vice Mayor Uranga, and I just want to thank you guys for your informative session and also all the stuff that you're sharing to share with our residents. I know on the city level, as staff, we're trying to share with our residents, that let us know that they use the bridge and stuff like that. It's a very used corridor. Some of our employees and stuff also work there, so just sharing that we're also doing that. I just want to say from our office perspective, we really do appreciate the 3 different detours offered, but just from our district, we just really, I guess, would like to endorse the Harry Bridges Boulevard detour, just in the fact that one of the detours does go through the 7th District on a decommissioned highway. The 103 from PCH to Willow is the city's, and it is decommissioned, and it's an issue we're facing weekly with it. And so if we can just mitigate that traffic through there and really do enforce the detour on Harry Bridges, I think it would be utilized. And I think some of the ideas that other residents here have, some like the Michigan lefts and stuff like that, are some great. But thank you. I think that's all our office just wanted to say on it, and thank you for your time. Thank you.
Up next, we have Michelle Grubbs.
I think I can do it. Can you hear me? I'll be all
We're
right.
going to bring it down.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you very much for your time today. Thank you, everyone. And Happy New Year. I have a couple things I'd like some clarification on. So a little bit more. Can you further clarify or elaborate about Alameda and the condition of the street? I think that gentleman mentioned it. We've all driven by it. We're afraid we're going to break our axle when we drive through the street, right? It is in horrible condition. I think you had mentioned previously that you were going to have construction of Alameda done, and that there was going to be some overlap, that it was going to be done at the same time as the Vincent Thomas Bridge closure. Can you tell us a little bit about where that is? And then also, I think you mentioned in this slide, and maybe I didn't hear it correctly, that you would repair the street so it would be able for cars to drive on, and you would maintain it and then make sure it was in good condition. I think it's not something you can just repave. I think it's something that's a lot deeper than that. And can you talk a little bit further about that? Because that's one of the biggest issues that we've got. If you make Harry Bridges the detour route, and it's not in the condition for cars or trucks to drive on right now. The second one is that you mentioned, you gave some numbers about 2,000 cars going on Harry Bridges, and that it had the capacity to handle it. Between the hours of 6 and 8 a.m. and 4 and 6 p.m., the ILW dispatch hall is right at Anaheim and Alameda. I don't think those are the normal numbers that you've got included. And so how you mentioned there's going to be additional mitigation. What is that? Because that's another 1,000 cars going to be during those 4-hour periods every single day. So I'm hoping maybe you can talk a little bit about that. Thank you.
Before I pass the mic to our team, is there anybody from the city of LA that wants to answer or give their feedback? Oh, Axel?
I can take this thing off. Right? Can everybody hear me? Yes. So to address the question, first of all, my name is Axel Palacios. I'm the Director of Port and Capital Projects for Councilmember McCosker. Not speaking tonight in terms of the last two diatribes I've given and Pedro and Wilmington because I'm on their side of the channel, so I'm being respectful to Long Beach. But our opinion is already on the record. So in terms of Alameda, we are in discussions with Caltrans. The Alameda widening project has been an ongoing project for the last decade. We've gotten to a point, Jesse knows, we've gotten to a point where we would be overlapping by 90% if we go along our current trajectory. So it's either going to be we go first and we finish our project and Caltrans pushes off the deck replacement, or they go first and we hold off our project, and our demand and our request is if we're going to do that, then we need to be compensated for construction escalation of costs, right? So that's the only fair way to go. That's the discussion one right now. We haven't made that decision just yet. We're still holding on Caltrans. I know they have their internal process to figure out how that's going to work. But that's where the discussion is, right? So there's no way we're going to do both at the same time. That's just impossible and extremely detrimental to the rest of the residents. So yeah, any other questions or? Oh yes. So if we're going to talk about the condition of the road, and Caltrans is aware of this, our Bureau of Engineering and our Streets LA department has stated that simple resurfacing is not going to be enough. The street is in such disrepair that it requires reconstruction, which is what our scope of the project on the southern end would do, is reconstruct and widen Alameda for use. So it's going to require reconstruction. It's not an easy build. You're basically scraping all the way down and having to reconstruct the whole street. So I'll keep my comments there, and I'm happy to talk to anyone who has any questions about the City of LA's side of the project. Thank you. And by the way, I have a newborn daughter, so I have this thing on too.
Thank you, Axel. Yep. Team, does anybody else have any comments?
Thank you, Michelle, for your comments. In terms of Harry Bridges Boulevard, if we go back to the slide, I think it referred to forecasted volumes in 2027, and it was, I didn't note it. It was specific to the PM peak hour. So that, in terms of what you mentioned, that would be like the 4 to 6 p.m. period. So, the anticipated demands were spelled out there, and I think in terms of total increase in demand during the full closure alternative, I best recollected being about round up to about 650 vehicles in that, given that staging scenario. So the volumes that were indicated on that slide, to the best of my knowledge, is reflective of the demand as we go from segment to segment between the intersections. And yes, we do have some challenges that present itself as Alameda transitions to Anaheim and Anaheim transitions to Henry Ford. So that's the areas where we'll try to strategize to do some signal timing, do some potential preemption in terms of the railroad activity. We were, I think, in the preliminary stages, we had identified opportunities there to add additional right turn lanes in terms of free right turn lanes. That's something we're working in partnership with our agencies, and while we would like it, it needs to make sense in terms of what the infrastructure, in terms of what the current infrastructure is at this point. So it takes a collaborative approach. While I would honestly like to have some of those improvements, it has to be reasonable in many regards. So. Yeah, we have a staff here that. Yeah.
I'm with Caltrans. My name is Sumei Tan. I kind of oversee the traffic study, and there was a lot of question about data collection. Michelle, I want to answer your question to add to what Ken had to say. So you mentioned about 6 to 8 a.m. in the morning, right? So our data collection had 3 peak periods. So the AM 6 to 9, the midday I think was 2 to 4, and the evening I think it's like 5 to 8. Our data collection was actually very extensive. We did field data collection for 61 intersections. And then with that, we used a third-party app to get data to further confirm our data. So the gentleman said you have 53,000 on the roadway segment. There's probably the total daily average traffic. But the data that we presented for traffic analysis is actually peak hour. And the reason why I can't show the PM peak, because among all the peak periods that we collected data, the PM peak is the worst condition. So I just want everybody to know that we didn't take the data collection lightly. We actually did 3 rounds of data collection because we want to know as much as you do how the traffic is going to be, because it only helps us. I'm sorry? Oh, okay. Yeah, so that's why we show the PM peak, because it's the worst case scenario. And our model for projection is a massive model. It is a regional model that included a port of LA, port of Long Beach, that included port traffic, cruise ship traffic. So our modeling actually and the data collection is very extensive and very inclusive because we want to know as much as you do how the traffic is going to be out there. So 6 to 8 a.m. we did collect the data, but that wasn't the worst peak period. Actually, the PM is. And the tens of thousands of number that you see is the daily average. But during the peak, the numbers are in the thousands. And we try to capture that to the best we can. In terms of adding lane and whatnot, those are the mitigation that we look into. And we run the traffic analysis. If we're going to do this lane, if we're going to add the signal timing, how we're going to improve. And we went through the extensive exercise of trying to optimize. But unfortunately, it will not be to a point of no impact, right? But the goal is to optimize, to minimize. Yes, the word significant is it was defined in the environmental report. But for traffic analysis purposes, we want to capture the sizable impact. And there will not be no impact, but the goal is to optimize. So hopefully you understand that. I just want to add to what Ken said, because I oversee the traffic study. Yeah, yeah, sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Sumei. Oh, Jesse, we can do another comment after this. We're down to our last card. This is our last card, so after this we can do more public comments and more general. Yes? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, my apologies. Okay, you can go. Okay, I'll call after you. I'll call you again after. Are you Christine Elia? Yes.
I think my question probably is for you anyways. Did you analyze the traffic and as to the types of traffic? What percentage of traffic is cargo carrying things? What part is businesses moving their goods into their market versus residents, because goods would come in, be moved probably during the middle of the day, whereas residents who go shopping or they go to school or they go to work are going to be going at different times of day. Did you break down the traffic into different categories somehow?
Yeah, so when we do data collection, we differentiate the vehicle types, right? So we have the passenger vehicle, which are the smaller vehicles, and we have the truck and buses, and we have the larger trucks, the semi-wheelers. Like the gentleman was saying earlier, because the larger size vehicle, they do take more room, especially at the turn pocket. So when we collect the data, it will differentiate between passenger car and then the larger, the truck type. And when we do the intersection analysis, the larger vehicle, they are treated differently because they do take 3 times the length of a passenger vehicle. So we do differentiate the different type of vehicles. So they will show you the truck percentage and the passenger car percentage. I don't know if that answers your question.
I don't know the percent of traffic though.
Uh-huh.
My idea, it has to do with the trucks carrying cargo. Why do they have to go down to the port? Can't they get on the railway on the north end, closer to like Willow or Del Amo or something like that, and to have the trains to bring them in? Is there, I don't know a lot about the trains and stuff, but can we prevent those vehicles from even coming into the ports?
I don't believe that's a question for Caltrans to answer how yeah, because we can't, if by the vehicle law, right, if a vehicle type can use a certain road type, I don't think we can prevent them from using it. But in terms of the why a certain cargo carrying truck has to go to the port, I don't think Caltrans has that answer. Yeah.
Well, you could have some incentives why they might want to put it on and not have to wait in line in there. They might be seen faster up north or something like that.
Yeah,
so
and
that's one of my my ideas. Another is that to me the backlog and the problems with the traffic are the same as, and the unavailability of the bridge is the same thing as if the bridge broke during an earthquake, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's not available to anyone, and everyone's trying to figure out how to go. The grand jury put out a report 6 months ago. One of the reports was about a major earthquake, a San Andreas one, not the little ones we have. And the fires right now are showing us we are not even prepared for a fire, let alone breakage of railroad tracks and utilities going down and water pipes breaking. And the two ports were asked to create plans for what they're going to do in those kind of circumstances. This could be a test run for them if they can make the port still work. If you can't get your cargo that came in, 40% of the cargo coming into the country comes through these two ports. So if you can't make the ports, you have food coming in from another country and you can't send it outside the county because the San Andreas Fault broke the roads and the railroads, what are they going to do? Those are the kinds of things they were asked to analyze, and maybe if you work with both ports and see if you can sort of use this as a test study for them, the building of the bridge.
Yeah, thank you for your comment. So we are working very closely with the two ports and exploring our idea. But I think what you mentioned, I think we have been working with the Port of LA, right, on if we can, yes. So we are working closely with the two ports on how to, do those kind of improvement like you mentioned. Yeah.
Look, right now, if that bridge was in progress and you have fires like we have now, and we have, we had a windstorm the day before, and you have maybe a tsunami coming or something. You put all those things together happening at the same time practically is sort of what the real scenario is going to look like. Because experts, they built their study on previous research that had been done by the USGS.
Yeah, thank you.
Then Christine, you can also email us at vtbproject@dot.ca.gov, and we'll pass on the information that you gave us to the ports. Thank you. And we have actually one more speaker, Clay.
Hi guys, thanks for being here tonight. I'm on the bridge a couple times a day. I'm a commuter who lives in San Pedro, works in Long Beach and Signal Hill, so at least twice a day, sometimes up to 4, maybe more. My concern is selfish, admittedly, but it's not so much about cars or trucks. I'm more concerned about thinking outside the box and thinking about ways to get people from point A to point B. I see in the handouts here you guys acknowledge the ferries options. I don't think anyone expected you to build a ferry terminal from scratch, but Catalina Express has a terminal in San Pedro. Catalina Express has a terminal in Long Beach. Could we connect those dots and give people an option to get from point A to point B by water instead? LADOT operates a dash bus across the bridge right now. That's obviously not going to be an option during the 16-month downtime. What are the detour routes for the bus going to be? How's that schedule going to be affected for people like me who take that bus once a week on average when I don't want to drive across the bridge myself? I know that at previous meetings there have been some concerns about additional construction ongoing in San Pedro right now along Western. Obviously there's some on and off ramp construction projects taking place right now to get trucks more easily on and off of freeways. But again, with too many projects, I mean, pardon my language, one of the things I tell my kid, it's better to do one thing well than half-ass two things. I don't want this to be a confluence of headaches all congregating at one point in time. I'll reiterate the points about Harry Bridges and just say that it's not just going to be about reconstructing the road out of the box. We're going to need you guys to maintain that. So I hope that it's going to be a continued outreach project over that 16-month downtime, whether it's a monthly meeting like this or some sort of periodic check-in with a local point person in San Pedro, in Wilmington, in Long Beach, where residents can relay their concerns. Maybe there's a hotline that can be established where it's kind of like you call about a pothole that needs to be patched up, where it's going to be dealt with in 72 hours. There's got to be some sort of accountability so that it's not just about we implement this plan, we walk away from it, and everything goes to hell for 16 months. I hope whatever plan you guys come up with and move forward with is written in pencil and not permanent ink, because it's going to be a matter of revising and rethinking and reevaluating based on people's habits that develop once that 16-month period goes into effect. Trucks as well. The last thing I'll say is that as someone who drives that bridge regularly, other than a breakdown on the bridge, the worst thing that can happen is when one truck passes another truck going uphill. That's the easiest way to create a traffic jam. If we put those trucks onto streets where there are traffic lights that are built for motorists driving personal vehicles as opposed to these large vehicles that do not accelerate very well at all, I don't know how many trucks on average can make it through a normal timed traffic light. We need to make sure that trucks somehow stay in one designated lane on these detour routes so they don't just clog every single possible lane as commuters, residents, whoever else is on the road. The 96%, according to your stats, of people who are out there on those roads need to be able to get to where they're going as well. I understand trucks and commerce, and we live in a capitalist society. It is what it is, so we're always going to take a back seat to that. I'm not advocating that we stop that flow. We just need to make it work for everybody during these 16 months, or else it's going to be well, we don't want rebellion on your hands down here. But again, thank you guys for being here. It seems like you guys have considered a lot of the potential headaches along the way, but we just want to make sure, as someone who uses that bridge every day, that you're still going to be here for us once that plug is pulled. Thank you.
Thank you, Clay. Those were all the comment cards for the TMP. Does anybody else want to come up and do a general comment or general question about the project? Feel free. Sure, you can come up again. Oh, give me one.
Thanks, Clay, for your comments. In regards to trucks, we have had some recent dialogue within our department in terms of, we understand the concerns related to mixing heavy vehicles or trucks with automobiles, and the impacts it can have to traffic flow as well as safety. So we're looking at alternatives that potentially we do on the freeway. We could regulate such activity by placing signs for trucks to use the right lane, only when they, with the exception of when they need to pass within the confines of the California Vehicle Code, for example. In terms of Harry Bridges, and in terms of the general outreach, we have that monthly outreach with our technical advisory committee, with our community advisory committee, and during the construction activities, we have a lot of dialogue with our partners and stakeholders, as well as our internal partners. So that dialogue will not cease. It's a continuous process. So in terms of going back to our TAC and CAC meetings, our vision is that that won't stop when the construction starts. It'll be a continuous process of which they, for the most part, they provide feedback, but we'll exchange information in terms of ideas to better address the concerns that we see and the feedback that we get from the public. And in terms of Caltrans, we have a customer service request process. So perhaps I could follow up and provide more details at a later time. But normally anyone with concerns will contact us through the what we call CSR, and then we will respond accordingly to that. We work with our public affairs office to best answer the concerns and address them if possible.
Thank you, Ken. Stephen? If anybody else wants to make a comment, feel free to stand behind him.
At the end of this, is what we're going to have a reconditioned but obsolete bridge? And when this whole project's done, because when they redid the Gerald Desmond, they added new features or whatever, and they made it going forward better. But at the end, if all we're going to have is a reconditioned, but the bridge is still going to be obsolete for future traffic, then why are we going this route as opposed to, I don't know, making a more modern bridge?
Actually, the bridge is in pretty good condition except for the deck. This is why we are just replacing the deck. Once the deck is replaced, we have at least 50 to 75 more years we can get out of this bridge. So, and for capacity enhancement, this project is funded from the shop. So Caltrans' mission now is to focus on fix it first. We don't sponsor projects that increase capacity. So to increase capacity, we have to work with agencies like Metro to partner with, because Metro would have the authority to fund these kind of projects. But for Caltrans right now, all what we can do is just to fix what the assets we have now. Thank you.
Is anybody else? Well, go ahead, Jesse.
Hello, once again. You referred to the truck app that they're developing. They've been developing apps and things for the last 20, 30 years, and they don't work. I just finished giving you evidence showing almost 200 trucks filling up both sides of one lane. None of your studies caught that. Why? Okay, why? You haven't even justified why would they need to go through Wilmington to begin with. But let's look at the bigger picture too. There's a reason we also have this problem. Because, see, we the public believed our government agencies, cities included, county included, about supporting and spending $1 billion to build the Alameda Corridor. And the purpose of the Alameda Corridor was to take trucks off the freeway. So we public said, great, take the trucks off the freeway. But what we didn't know was government agencies manipulating everything they were telling the public, because see, who sits on the Alameda Corridor board? The Port of LA and the Port of Long Beach. They're on that Alameda Port. And if you go to their website, they cancel 90% of all meetings every year that they're going to have for the public. But my point being is that they were supposed to take the trucks off the freeway. Well, guess what? I checked at the number. Okay? They operate at about 30 to 35% using it, which means and now say, oh, we got a lot of capacity. Yeah, they have a lot of capacity, because why? The ports don't require their terminals and truck drivers and them to use that. So it's not being used because you have, a fox watching the chickens. They don't want to do it. They're manipulated by industry that says, hey, we don't want to use that Alameda Corridor, even though it's in the best public's interest. Screw the public. So we have two government agencies right now manipulated by industry to never achieve 100% usage of the Alameda Corridor. And that's why it has capacity today. Why? And why isn't that one of your mitigation measures? I didn't see it in the EIR anywhere. It's not even mentioned to increase capacity of the Alameda Corridor. That's why there's so many things wrong with this. Thank you.
Does anybody have a comment, response?
Thank you, Jesse. I mean, in terms of project impact, our preference again is to focus on the freeway detours. Do we want to run a detour through Wilmington if we? No, we don't. But if we had to choose, we want to choose a route that has the.
You choose Alameda Corridor and mandate they put the containers on the Alameda Corridor and not on the public, and not going through my community, Carson community, or West Long Beach community. That is the best mitigation measure that you did not consider, and that was an option. So why did you fail to consider that? Why did your consultants fail to mention that and include that?
We're attempting to maximize the use of the state highway system and minimize the use or the impact of the local roadway system. So by us trying to emphasize the freeway system, that also includes 47 North, for example. So again, we removed Sepulveda from consideration. We removed PCH from consideration, and even before, if you may recall, when we met you in San Pedro, we had a presentation that considered Alameda connecting to the 405. But we kind of, we took a step back. Again, this is a continuous process. It's not perfect, and what I'm presenting here is not final by any means. But as we look at it today, we're trying to stay on that path of maximizing the state highway system as best we can. But when the
Option is actually option number 4. Do it at night, so you have minimum impact on the public. Yes, it takes it longer. That's okay, but it has least amount of impact on the public.
We understand, and that's typically how we do things to minimize such impact. Relative to this project, we're letting the people speak in terms, yourself as well as businesses and otherwise to speak to that, and they have spoken as far as we're concerned, and this is the path we're going in terms of the 16-month closure. But prior to that, there will be some night work, and there will be some work during extended weekend closures. So that's all I can speak to at this time. Things could evolve, but this is where we're at. Thank you.
Also, we looked at working only at night, but for this type of structures, it may not be feasible. And if it's feasible, it's going to take at least 44 to 50 months to complete the project.
That's okay. It's at least impact on the public. You're conveniencing industry. You're letting industry tell you what to do, and you're letting the Walmarts and Home Office Depots that import all this stuff at no cost. All the cost comes to us to pay for all this, and be impacted by all this.
But again, for technical reasons, for this type of structures, we can't just, we're not going to get the quality, and also the deck may not last as long as we expect it to last. So this is one of the factors.
Impact reports for bridges are built for an estimated life of 100 years. Again, you fail to address the fact that when ports operate and they double and triple every 7 to 10 years, that yes, it would call a premature degradation of the bridge requiring that. But then we, the public, get stuck with the bill for the port's work, and for all the big box retailers, they pay nothing. It's we, the public, our taxes that's paying for all this. You're not telling them to pay anything. And the little gas fee that you collect, no. That's nothing.
All right. Thank you for the comment anyway.
Thank you, Jesse. That's going to wrap it up for public comment. We like to remind you that we have our survey available in English and Spanish, available on our website. And again, feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions moving forward. We'll hang out here for a bit until the library closes, and feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Thank you.